Hello everyone, this is the recording for the week 2 presentation. This week you're to read chapters 3, 4, 5, and 6. The topic for the discussion is what is normalization? Where do you find it in a database? Give one example why normalization is important and explain the difficulties without it. Your initial post should be at least 100 words. It's due Wednesday. You must have at least one APA reference in your initial post. True replies to others are due by Sunday. The week 2 assignment, you're to complete problems 1, 4, 5, and 6 on page 110 in the textbook, which is at the end of chapter 3. You're to identify for each table the primary key and the foreign key. If a table does not have a foreign key, then just put none. One way to do this is to do it with the table. You could do it in Word or PowerPoint, however you want to do it. How do you determine a primary key? Well, if we go to the book, sorry, I didn't, I think it was page 81. I forgot to turn that on first. So look, if we look at this table, you're going to look at the columns, the different columns, and find out which one is unique. Of course, on here it identifies that it's customer code, and if you look at customer code, all of the numbers are unique. The foreign key is the same, all the numbers are unique, but it's the primary key for the agent table. But if you look at the agent code, you will see that the numbers are not unique, but it only uses the three numbers, 501, 502, and 503. That's how you determine it's a foreign key. Number 4, you to describe the types of relationships between store and region. You can either write it below if you use the table, or you can put it in the table, just add extra columns, however you want to do it. You need to use one of these notations from page 47. You can do those in Visio if you have it. If you don't have Visio, you can do it in PowerPoint. And what you do is you just create the shapes. And for the line, you'd have to do a long line and then put extra lines on it to make the crow's feet. So whichever one is easiest for you to use. To do, for instance, if you do, make sure you identify which table it is you're representing. So for instance, I put on here employee number and name, etc., but what you really want is the table. So store and region, and then identify the relationships. And then number 6 is to create a relational diagram that shows the relationship between store and region. So this is a relational diagram. You'll see that the notation's a little different. It has a 1 and then it has an infinity sign. To do the little infinity sign, you can just type an 8 in the text box and then just turn it on its side. That's how I did it there. Now the final project, you should already know what type of database you want, and you can create the database. Now there's needs to be 4 tables, 16 rows, and at least 4 columns in each. Of course, depending on what type of database you have, you might need more than 4 columns, but you've got to have at least 4. There's a few ways you can do it. You can use the command line, or you could, depending on what you're using, if you're using Oracle Apex or Oracle Application Express, they're pretty much the same. You could either put it in Excel, like we did with the database 1. And this is an example of it being in Excel, and you'll see that it has those separators. That's what tells Excel that these are separate columns. So make sure you have your commas in there. Otherwise, it'll lump them all together. When you do that, if you haven't created a primary key, you can let Oracle do that for you. But you do have to have a primary key. You see that this SID is not unique because we have the student listed more than once. So you could also create the table and then add the data directly. Once you have your tables created, you can then decide what queries you need. So if you were going to create the table directly, it starts out with you naming your columns. Then you go to primary key, foreign keys, constraints, and confirm. Remember that your tables have to have a unique name. You can't have two tables with the same name. To study for the quiz 2, know how to recognize a correct query. I've listed here a website that has several queries that you can look at. Know the types of joins. That's on page 89. Be able to define the following: primary key, secondary key, foreign key, and candidate key. Those are on page 80. Know how normalization works, page 202. Storing data in a permanent normalized table is a recommended solution. Know the use of a denormalized table, that's page 231. Know what happens when a table has multiple candidate keys, page 215. Know what union compatible is, page 84. Know what a primary key is, page 76. The ER model should be validated against what processes, page 233. That's all I have. All I have on my last page is references. This is pretty short. If you have any questions, please let me know.